Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
It's 8:07 on the mighty WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up, we are definitely going to delve into the Secretary of State's testimony before Congress yesterday on Benghazi. But joining us right now on our Newsmaker Hotline is Lawrence Wright. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He wrote what I believe is the most important book of the last decade, The Looming Tower. And now he's got a brand new book out. It's called Going Clear, Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief. It is a very compelling read. Lawrence Wright, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to join you.
So,
Thank you.
I'm curious, what made you decide to pivot from the subject that you wrote so clearly about in the last decade, and that is the growing threat from Islamic terror, and go to Scientology?
Well, I've always been interested in why people believe one thing rather than another. This is something that, one of the features that drew me into radical Islam as a subject. So, Scientology was always one of those religions. It was rather perplexing. You know, it's probably the most stigmatized religion in the country.
And yet so many, we don't know much about, there's so much secrecy around Scientology.
That's right. And so many sort of luminous celebrities that are part of it. So what is it that draws them into this church? What gives them, what do they get out of it, and why do they stay?
And it seemed, you mentioned celebrities, and I think you do a great job in the book. I've lived in Los Angeles, and I know how prevalent it is there. You did a great job of sort of capturing how Scientology has really ingratiated itself into the entertainment industry and really appeals to artists. Why is that? What is it about Scientology that appeals to artists?
Well, to start with, it was designed to do that. The Church of Scientology began in Los Angeles in the early 50s. They have a celebrity center. It's all geared at luring artists into the church. And L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the religion, had wanted to take over the entertainment industry. He thought it was a great way to spread Scientology as a popular religion. At the time, he had one of the publications had a list of celebrities prospective celebrities they wanted to bring in, like Walt Disney and Marlene Dietrich and people like that, Bob Hope. And they actually did get some, like faded movie stars like Gloria Swanson. Rock Hudson came in the door for a little while. So, they were always on the lookout for that one person who could be the face of Scientology and give it credibility.
And did they find that in Tom Cruise?
There's nobody in the history of Scientology that has played as important a role for Scientology as Tom Cruise.
Let me ask you this. I want to, in your press releases and in the book, you describe it as a religion. And there are those who say, I'm not sure it really qualifies as a religion. How did you come down on that question?
Well, a lot of the people who left the Church of Scientology say it's a cult. But, the truth is, there's only one opinion that matters, and that is the IRS. And
well said.
You can call it what you want. But in 1993, the IRS made the decision, and of course they made this decision in the face of 2,400 lawsuits that had been launched against the church, launched against the IRS by the church. They decided that Scientology is a religion, and all those suits were dropped as a part of the deal. And now the First Amendment of our Constitution protects it with vast amount of liberties that that amendment allows. So that's been the turning point in the history of the church.
I just want to make a fine point here. The IRS may call it a religion, but as you've done an investigation of it, what is your personal opinion?
Well, I think it has a lot of things to answer for, to be frank. There are people that live inside that community, and they get something out of it. I'm not questioning that. What disturbs me are the abuses that are going on at the top of that religion, physical abuses, involuntary confinement, and especially the recruitment of children at very young ages into its clergy called the Sea Org, where they sign billion-year contracts of service, and they essentially step away from their education, and they're impoverished by their service. I think they're way too young to make such decisions.
Lawrence Wright is our guest. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Looming Tower, and his new book, Going Clear, Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief, is going to be featured along with Mr. Wright at Politics and Prose tonight at 7 p.m. He's going to be doing a book signing. And I want to make sure that everyone understands this is not a textbook. This is written like, and you frame it like a novel. It is a very compelling read, and you really focus on the life of Paul Haggis as sort of the framing device here. Tell me about Paul Haggis. He's now an apostate. He has left the church, but he was a major part of the church for a long time.
He joined when he was a young man in Ontario, and moved to L.A. and actually, he went to the very top of the Scientology spiritual ladder. And indeed, he actually was helped, he says, by some of the courses he took, and I think it also helped him get his early jobs. He went into cartoons at the very beginning of his career. Of course, he later went on to win Academy Awards for Crash and $1 Million Baby. But it was, I was looking for some way to write about Scientology. You have to have someone who can take you into that world, or someone the reader can identify with, and preferably someone who's smart and skeptical, and someone that's not easily dismissed. And that's the role that Paul played, because he is those things. And it makes the reader think twice about dismissing people that are in the Church of Scientology as a bunch of cranks.
Yes. And you talk about, you explain exactly how he got into the church, and listen, I believe they have a building right down on DuPont Circle here in Washington, right. D.C., and what happens is you get approached by people who ask you to do a personality test, and it starts that way. I'd like you, based on everything that you've learned and everything you know now, if a parent hears from their child that they're starting to take classes or courses or investigating into Scientology, what advice do you have for a parent and how best to talk to their kids about that?
I think it's important to be on guard and be aware of the consequences of someone who might be entering the Church of Scientology. A lot of times when you're faced as a young recruit with resistance, maybe your mother or father or a friend, spouse, says, I don't think you should be doing this. The church might say that person is a suppressive person. In other words, they're blocking your spiritual progress, and you need to disconnect from them.
Wow.
And I've talked to so many families that have been torn apart by this. It's a wrenching. There have been a lot of tears in this story.
Yeah, it really is. All right, Lawrence Wright, thank you so much for joining us. Again, Politics and Prose tonight at 7 p.m. Lawrence Wright there for a book signing. His new book, Going Clear, Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief. It really was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me, guys.